Good morning, good evening, and good afternoon, lovely people, depending on where you are watching us from in this beautiful world. And here we are with part three. We made it. I have Sally Anderson with me again today. And we were so excited about doing this in a three-part series because those of you who have watched part one and part two know how there was no way in any way that we could have squeezed that into a 30-minute interview or conversation. So, Sally, I am so grateful that you're here with me today again. And I just want to maybe do a quick recap of where we came from and why we are landing where we are today. In our part one, you shared about one of the most horrific attacks I have ever personally heard of in my entire life. You were 15 years old. And for those who want to rewatch the entire story, we will be putting the links to part one and part two of our conversation in the show notes so you can rewatch it. And in part two, we talked about love, how it is even possible to love again after a horrific attack like that at the age of 15. And then also about the loss of your gorgeous husband, Roger. And today, not surprisingly, we land in a space where we talk about transformation and healing. And thinking about where we've come from, where we are today, transformation and healing sound like buzzwords that don't even cut to the chase, that don't even give your story justice. So, with that, I would like to hand over to you because this is all we're going to talk about today, the transformation, transcendence, like on a deepest level. And thank you so much for being here again and sharing this for a third time with me, this beautiful space. How are you this morning?
I'm pretty damn good. All the better for seeing you.
Thank
And I
you.
was thinking about what I was going to share today, and I really want your listeners to be able to walk away with some tools in their toolkit. Those that are
Mm,
navigating trauma, those that are navigating grief, because the book that I've written, Beyond Brave, The Art of Living Courageously, its key point of difference is looking through the lens of empowered grief. And
mm,
obviously, when you're in the height of your trauma or height of your grief, it's far from bloody empowering. But the entire book is looking at it from that lens. So I
mm.
just thought, as far as episode three was concerned, to be able to impart some of the education, both that's in the book and also what I facilitate with other people, so that your
Mm.
audience can kind of like walk away with some tangible tools that they can apply. Mm.
I absolutely love that. Before we get there, I would
Mm.
love to come back to your personal story because um, I know that you've got a whole arsenal of tools to get through this, and we talk a little bit more about what we are going to do with this going forward. However, can you share a little bit about your personal story? How did you get to the space to create tools like that? Because this is not something that you made up in your mind. Your mind definitely helped a lot with that, but this is something that was from lived experience. So, when you think about intense trauma, the one thing that really stood out for me that we talked about in our first episode was that people always focus, or very often focus, on the attack, on the adversity, on the loss, on the trauma, but hardly anybody talks about what it actually means walking through life thereafter. The aftermath is just horrendous. And this is something that not many people focus on. The focus always goes back to what happened, but not how you actually deal with this and how you get through life and how you survive. And then also the transformation part. You know, there's so much in this. Can you share this from your personal story, from your personal perspective, what life was like after the attack at the age of
Mm.
15?
Mm. Sure. I mean,
Sure. Light and breezy in the morning.
most people looking in on my life, they'd kind of like go, man, that's a lot of fuckery. You know, it's kind of like, how can one human being go through so much intense
Yeah.
adversity? You know, the defining moments, just to recap, you know, gang rape and abducted, one of the worst reported gang rapes at the age of 15. Nobody survives an experience like that. Character assassinated globally, decimated online, you know, death threats, you know, and I was always already living with the fear of the mob putting a hit out on me if I came out publicly about it,
Mm,
bankruptcy, you know, losing everything. And then the death of my husband, you know, I'd lost my father, my brother, my sister, multiple friends' deaths. So I thought I knew death. And then the loss of my husband was really the catalyst for me to write the
Mm,
book. Um,
mm,
and I've observed over the years that a lot of people focus on the event, the happening, or the perpetrator, which is why they never get beyond it. And maybe they'll look at themselves maybe 10% of the time. And that's where I make the delineation between intellectual forgiveness and experiential forgiveness.
mm.
Experiential forgiveness is where you can't do jack shit about the past. It's happened.
Yeah.
And everybody has a story, and nobody really has the right to judge somebody else's story. Your story is your story, my story is my story. There's a lot of comparison half the time.
Mhm.
But whatever is relative for you, I think is important to note. I think 90% of the focus needs to be on yourself because you become your own worst perpetrator.
Yeah.
And I was my own worst perpetrator for a good 30 odd years. So in the context of how, which is where the education comes in, which is what I'm wanting to focus on today, there's no certainty when you're in the
Mhm.
height of your trauma or grief. There's no peace and you don't feel safe.
Yeah.
And if you don't feel safe and regulated in your nervous system, it is very difficult to function in the real world. And so a lot of people are in what I call the default looping matrix. And
Mhm.
I think every one of us, if you're human, comes with a territory, have a doctorate in this area. So you're filled with doubt, and the
Mhm.
doubt feeds the disbelief because there's no new evidence. That then
Yeah.
feeds the worrying, and then that feeds the complete and utter decimation of, you know, the anxiety and the depression and all that sort of thing. You just keep looping. And
Yeah.
so it starts, you know, the cause versus symptom, it starts with doubt because there's no certainty.
Yeah.
And of all of the grief material that I've heavily researched, and this is not knocking what's in the grief market,
Mhm.
but I don't believe grief is a wound that you have to overcome. It is one of the most potent catalytic transformational journeys of one's life. And to be able to experience that level of transformation, which is what I highlight in the book, if anybody hasn't got beyond their trauma and or their grief, and this is only my personal opinion based on those that I've coached and my own experience, is that you must go to everything you're confronted by, resistant of, and uncomfortable with. Like for me to return to the public domain after 7.5 years of being off the public domain for fear of further attack on that
Yeah.
gang approach,
Mhm.
um, uh, which is the irony of the book title, you know, Beyond Brave.
Yeah.
Um, Being able to provide people with how can you feel safe again? How can
Mhm.
you experience peace? How can you experience a level of certainty?
Yeah.
All of that lies in the face of confrontation, resistance, and uncomfortability. So I am comfortably uncomfortable. I'm
Mhm.
comfortably completely resistant, and I'm comfortably confronted, returning to
Mhm.
the public domain. So those are the shoes that I live in. And part of what I write about in the book is most people get off the court when they're confronted, resistant, or uncomfortable. Whereas the
Mhm.
book is a kind of like oxymoronic, you know, reverse psychology. The
Mhm.
answers to what you want lie in that uncomfortability,
Yeah.
resistance, and discomfort.
And
So,
also, yeah, I just want to ask you one thing here because I'm super happy to be very uncomfortable and raw and honest here about where I'm standing with this. Just this weekend gone, I went through a real dip in my mindset. And I experienced this observing myself, how to get myself out of there. I literally tapped into this. What do I actually need? I literally went into this. Come on, Marie. You know this. You've been there. You've done that. And I think what I want to put out there is for people listening in here. I mean, I'm looking at you. You are like impersonated strength. You know, you have this power. You have this. You survive this. You've got this real, not just survivor, but thriver. Like go getter. I've got this personality, and yet behind that, we all have days where we have moments or a whole day where we feel absolute shit. And for me, what we talk about here is not that we are always happy, we're always strong, we're always power, power, power. We just know what to do when things happen that throw us. I think that's what I would really like to get across because so many people look at, I'm just going to say us very loosely here, and say, well, you've done it, you've done the work, and you've gotten through it, and yeah, it's easy for you to say you're strong, you're healed. And I'm like, well, I believe, I don't know, I'd love to hear what your thought on that is, but I believe that healing is an ongoing journey. There's always something that comes up, and when there's something that comes up, they're like, oh, I know you. Why? Most people drop into this. Why is it happening again? Why do I feel it again? That is something I don't do anymore, which I'm really, really happy about, because now I'm like, okay, I know you, and there's probably another layer. So what have I not seen yet, or what do I still need to look at? And having the tools and knowing what to do is, I think, the most important part, because going through life, there'll always be curveballs. There'll always be things that might throw us or might even trigger us. And even after all the healing and the years of healing that you do, there might still be triggers. It's not about not ever having triggers again. It's about knowing what to do with it. Is that your perspective, or where do you come from when I say that? How does that land with you?
Sorry, I've just realized that
Yeah.
I have 10% power on my computer.
Let's
My
plug you in before we
apologies,
lose you.
my
No,
apologies.
this is live, everybody. That's
Oh,
absolutely
please,
fine.
I'm so sorry. I'm just going to
No,
turn
no,
my
no, no,
camera off and
please.
go and get my plugged. Sorry,
Please
my
go for it. I'm
apologies.
going to have a sip of coffee. Meanwhile, what are you guys all doing? Just leave a comment. It's really lovely to do things like that live, and keep it real, right? So I'm going to share a little bit more about this. Having gone through this over the weekend, I had an entire day planned for Sunday, with a morning walk with a group, with a friend, catching up with another friend, and then going to a sort of casual networking function. And I just cancelled my entire day because I knew that I needed self-care. And I love that Sally will be here back in a second. I had the bling plugged in. And we'll definitely be talking a lot more about this, self-care. Hello, welcome back. I just shared about my day, what I did with my little droopy moment, and cancelled my entire day to have some self-care.
My
So
apologies,
yeah,
my apologies for that interlude. So, in answer to
we
your
just threw
question,
that in so we can
yeah,
prove that it's
yeah,
life,
yeah. So language is spells. How you language your world. Like if you want your reality of your world to change your language. So just speaking into what you said before
Love it.
about, the shit that I've been through or how hard it
Mm,
was, or
mm,
to me, I reframe a lot, knowing that language creates the reality of my world. All of human
yeah.
suffering is a function of what we make things mean. And so
Mm,
if you want to stop suffering, you got to stop making things mean something. Yeah. And
mm,
so when you language something, you haven't gone through shit. Nothing's been hard. You've just been
yeah.
disconnected. Because when you're
Yeah.
connected to your faith, whatever that is for you, it's not
Yeah.
hard. It's not difficult. It's not. And so
Yeah.
people who are in the monkey mind are completely
Mm,
disconnected. They're operating from the child. If you're empowered, you are in the adult version of yourself. If you are disempowered, you're in
mm,
the child version of yourself, the wounded child.
yeah.
And the distinction choice is the most powerful word, I
Mm,
believe, on the planet. You got a choice in how you feel, choice in how you
yeah.
respond, choice in what you do. You got a frigging
Mm,
choice.
yeah.
And how many books do we need to read that say, be careful what you think, your thoughts create reality? Well, they do.
Yeah.
Yet we're not trained on how to monitor our thoughts. So the daily mantra
Yeah.
that I live by that saved my life is what I'm thinking congruent to the game that I'm playing, the values that I espouse?
Mm,
If not, I don't think it. Is what I'm saying
yeah.
congruent? If not, I don't
Yeah.
say it. Is what I'm doing congruent? If it's not, I don't do it. Is what I'm
Yeah.
who I'm being on a day to. It trains you to a very high degree of integrity. People
Mm,
don't monitor their thoughts and then
yeah.
wonder why they create the carnage. When I got the distinction
Yeah.
choice, I didn't realize that I was the one creating half of the drama because of my stinking thinking. Yeah.
Mm,
And the five, I call them relinquishment buckets. It's called the ludicrousy
mhm,
cycle. I don't have
mhm,
enough time. I don't have enough money. I don't have enough energy. I don't know how. Or you're manifesting an illness to abdicate responsibility for showing up in the world, right? And so in
mm,
the retreats that I used to run retreats for 10 months of the year for 10 years. One hell of a case
mhm.
study. And I'd go around the room and I'd say, which ones are yours? Oh, time and money. Oh, energy and illness. Or, like they'd openly
Mhm.
state it, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But somebody who is committed, that distinction between wanting something and being committed to something, like I want
Mm,
to have money, I want to have time, I want to have energy, I want to be healthy,
mm. What
is
did you
very
hear?
different from People who are committed will find the money. People who are committed will find the time. People who are committed will look after their well-being to not get ill.
Yeah.
People who are committed will find the energy, and people who are committed will not hang out in confusion, which is the number one
Yeah.
strategy of the default identity, which is what I specialize in, that identity level transformation, because you're either in your power or you're in your default, your disempowered state, and you oscillate between the two. In my
Yeah.
education, I teach you to die to that identity so that your new default identity becomes your empowered state. And so in summary, the distinction choice is almighty powerful, knowing what your relinquishment buckets are, because people tolerate a lot, especially when they are grieving and or when they are overcoming some level of trauma. A lot of people that I interviewed, we're talking decades, and it may as well have happened yesterday. They haven't got beyond it, regardless of the healing, the workshops, the seminars, the books, or whatever that they've tried. That saddens me. And the fundamental belief was that they did not believe that they could get beyond it. I think there is a phase of recalibration.
And that is, before we go to the recalibration part, I want to say a couple of things here, because that is the biggest thing. It comes back to what you started with, the belief. If people don't believe that they get there, they won't. Let's just keep it super simple without being mean here. That's just the way it is. So what I want to throw in here is empathy and sympathy. So these two things were a hugely important distinction for me in my grief journey, because most people in our culture confront grief with sympathy. And I said, I don't want that sympathy. It's not going to help me heal. I don't want people to feel sorry for me. This whole I'm sorry for your loss or my condolences business is something that I always repelled, because I don't want any sympathy. And people revert to that. That's the go-to phrase that we use, my condolences if it's a formal setting, I'm sorry for your loss if it's more personal setting. And I always look at people and say, like, why? And I don't take up that confrontation with every conversation, but I don't receive that well, because for me it is absolutely negating the incredible spiritual transformation that I went through. The realization of this was, Robin, my soul contract, that to me is something that I honor so highly, that when somebody comes in with I'm sorry for your loss, I can't take that. I know how they mean it. So but I'd love to hear your take on sympathy versus empathy in the space of grief, in the space of trauma, and then also talk a little bit more about the empowerment in that. But I'll sit on that first. What's your take on sympathy versus empathy here?
I pretty much represent every extreme nightmare nobody would want to go through. And so when people are in my presence, they find me intimidating or confronting, or because they're having to deal with their own insecurity around anything of that nature. So to me, sympathy is about, I can have compassion when somebody's trying to portray their sympathy towards me, because I pretty much represent everything that they don't want to experience, right? So it's kind of like, you really want to talk to her about gang rapes and bankruptcies and fucking character assassinations and deaths of everybody, and so I'm cognizantly aware of what my energy evokes within people. I pretty much karmically activate people, which is why I've attracted as much attack as I have over the years. Because, when you come from love, you will attract evil, So in my world, I have compassion because I understand the domain of the human psyche. Is that it's not so much that they're portraying sympathy for me. I can have compassion as to why they feel so uncomfortable in my presence, because who wants to lose their partner, and the thought of them even thinking about what that would be like for themselves, that takes something. So we activate people like ourselves who've experienced extreme grief and or trauma. We activate people. And they don't know how to deal with it because they've never gone through that experience themselves. So in that, I can have compassion as to why they're showing up, all well-meaning, right? And at a level can't get away from you fast enough, because if you get into an in-depth conversation, all the rest of it, then that's going to highlight aspects of their world that they're not comfortable with. And most people get off the court when they're confronted, resistant, or uncomfortable.
Yeah. So I can fully understand that. I can feel that when you say that, and I have experienced it many times as well. Like, like what a beautiful icebreaker. You come to a party, you don't know anyone, and just, so what do you do for a living? I don't want to answer that because I know the energy will drop in a
Yeah,
room once I start talking
yeah.
about it. Even though my whole mission is bringing lightness into grief. But as soon as the word grief drops, like people drop into their "I'm so sorry for your loss" and then can't get away fast enough. It's
Mm.
exactly that, And I really don't want to repel people. I would love to go to a party where that doesn't matter, where I can just be. So I'm still practicing with this. When do I say it? How do I say it? What do I say? However, let's just park this. What I want to come back to is grief and empowerment. So this is something that you and I very much align with, and one of many reasons why we're sitting here. For me, I would never, I don't know if I've ever shared that moment with you. I'm actually going to share it again because I think it's really important for the conversation going forward, and I'll keep it super short. It was the same week that we held a celebration of life for Rob. So the funeral was midweek on a Wednesday, and Sunday, I walked Jed, my younger son, down the aisle on my own to his first Holy Communion. Same week. It was horrendous. And I have to say that going to the Sunday event, it was harder than the funeral. For the funeral, I felt prepared. I had my eulogy. I had my whole life with Rob that I wanted to share with people. I wanted to inspire people. I wanted to talk about love and connection. I felt really prepared. I was not prepared to walk Jed down the aisle on my own. All eyes on us, small country town. Everybody knew. It was freaking heartbreaking. So I walked out of the church and burst into tears. And that night, I completely fell apart. I collapsed. Everything that I had held in that I didn't realize I was holding in came out. Primal screaming, falling apart, whacking kitchen cupboards, like literally collapsing on the kitchen floor, screaming. And I'm mentioning that because in that screaming, I could feel a primal power. I have never, not even through two birth experiences, that I've never felt such a primal power. And went to a psychologist, found a positive psychologist that I was already in contact with. She was on my database for my clients, never thought for myself. And in one of our sessions, she asked me what grief meant to me, because I felt the burden of people always coming with this expectation of me falling apart. I felt that as a burden. And she said, what did it mean to me? And to my own surprise, the first word that came up was empowerment. And I was like, wow, I did not expect that, And knowing what I know now and having gone through my own spiritual journey and transformation and everything, I now know that grief brings out a primal power within you like no other. I honestly think it's like even way above what I have experienced through my birth experiences. And here was I thinking, this is my choice. I can let this power destroy me, or I can tap into that power and rebuild myself. I didn't think that consciously back then, but this was my journey. Looking back now, this was my journey. This is what I did. So I know that you talk about empowerment in grief, and I would love for you to share what your perspective on that is, because I find that is so, so important for people to hear that, because many people will feel that power but don't know how to connect it or what to do with it.
Beautiful question, and thank you for sharing so vulnerably. Quite moved, quite moved.
Yeah.
I owed it to Roger to live. And I said, I think in episode 2, that to be grateful for that he died before me to safeguard him from the extremity of the devastation. That if that was part of my experience, then so be it, because I would not wish that on my worst enemy. But I believe I had a responsibility to honor our relationship. And especially given the work that I do, I've been 25 years in the trenches, 37 years overall in leadership. I work in the arena of empowerment. Because for me, grief is about the death of an identity and death and rebirth. So most people think the dark night of the soul is one of the worst things you could ever go through, but it actually births you into becoming unrecognizable to yourself, which is why I've focused 8 chapters on recalibration, 8 chapters on rebuilding, and 8 chapters on reinvention. That doesn't happen overnight. Everybody's journey is different and individual.
Definitely not.
But those that struggle with dying to their old identity, which grief forces you to, because there's no certainty. There's no certainty of a future. Everything you do becomes singular, and it's often done in isolation. And most people have never been forced into isolation to look at themselves to the degree. A bit like with COVID, it forced humanity to be in a foreign environment to look at their relationships, their communication, their identity in the world, their decisions. I mean, it was en masse, one of the most
Yeah.
transformative, good and bad, experiences, and that people were forced to. They didn't choose willingly. Whereas with grief, you are forced to look at yourself. And that's where the 3 pillars of true transcendence that I talk about in the book in every single chapter. How do you apply confrontation, resistance, and uncomfortability, which are things that usually have you get off the court? How do you actually form a new relationship with being that confronted, that resistant, that uncomfortable? Because when you live on the other side of it, which I've mastered, it's a different world.
Yeah.
And you talk about primal screaming. That is part of that connection at a soul level. I talk about mind, body, soul. Just to share of my own experience. I've done 42 years of healing. I mean, I don't know many people have done 42 years of healing. But to me, the severity of the disconnect, specifically with the gang rape, that is not survivable, and especially in the case of it not being supported, the fact that I went to every dimension of my psychotic, world, it's very weird to be a coach who specializes in that demonic, satanic underworld. There's very few practitioners that have met that face to face, who've died and come back, who's able to facilitate, because that's what I really feel at the moment is the severity of uncertainty for people invokes so much fear. And if you are so fearful, then there's no safety. And if there's no safety, there's no peace. And you cannot put a dollar value on feeling safe, on feeling peace, and on knowing with some level of certainty that you will be able to survive this. Often I'm asked, how did you get beyond, and of all of the chapters that I've written in the book, I'm a highly disciplined person. I should have been in the SAS, I tell you.
I have noticed.
Because discipline equals freedom. And that when you're in the height of the grief, when you don't want to get out of bed in the morning, you don't want to face anybody, you don't feel as though that you can function, you don't feel as though you can get beyond the fear that is invoked because there's so much uncertainty. Discipline plays a big part, I believe, get out of bed and make the bed, even if you did that, or get up and, have a shower and
it's those little things, right?
Totally,
like every single
totally.
day, because it's also that mechanism of realizing what do I have in my power to do, because that's another thing. Just like people focus on the event, what happened, rather than the aftermath and then how to heal through that. A lot of people look at what they can't do anymore. They look at all the closed doors rather than, so what can I do? What can I do with that? And I think it's such a simple thing, the making the bed in the morning, the getting up, the having a shower, and actually acknowledging that and recognizing that that is something I chose to do. Maybe not on a conscious level, but you chose to do that. You did that. There is power in that. And coming back to those tiny little steps that build up and build up and build up, and then you realize, oh, actually, I'm doing so much more than I thought I was capable of. I can't believe that we went through 3 sets of half an hour. We're sort of at the end of this already, but I'm not ready to cut this off just as yet because, so bear with us, will be a few more minutes. There is something incredible that we would like to share that came out actually after our first conversation together. You sent me a message about a little download that you had, maybe not so little. I'll let you share that. What's in store for people watching this? Because, drum roll, please.
Well, between Marie and I, we've probably got 60 plus years of experience, lived experience, and I felt, give or take, and given that it's one thing to be inspirational, it's another thing to be motivational, but I also felt that we have a lot of wisdom that we'd love to impart, it's a limitless market because there are so many people who are grieving, who are unable to get beyond their trauma. But even those, regardless of grief and or trauma, those that are just wanting to get an injection of transformation in their lives. So we've
Mm.
hatched a plan, and we're going to create an incubator for 90 days. Um, and both of us are in alignment. This is not a program that we can sell. It's about resonance. You'll either go, yep, or you'll go, no. Oh, I know for my own sake, I'm not for everyone. But I'm about results, and I would love to support people in whatever it is that they're facing right now. And 90 days is a long enough time frame to really look at how do I take on aspects of my life, and anything goes, personally or professionally.
Mm.
So we're launching in July. We're about to launch the program today. So registrations for the program are open as of today,
Officially open. Yeah.
officially open. It is a small, intimate group, into me, you
Mm.
see. So wanting to give a lot of personalized attention and journey with you every week over a 90-day period. We're calling it the Alchemy of Becoming
Mm.
because the whole experience of overcoming anything from your past is part of that becoming somebody that is unrecognizable to yourself. I talk about
Mm.
unrecognizable transformation a lot. People go, well, if it's that unrecognizable, how do you recognize it? I go, well, in your current level of awareness, I'll agree with you. But see, when you die to that default level of identity, you become unrecognizable to yourself. And I genuinely feel people's pain, and the ability to be able to understand why you're experiencing what you are, because there's the incessant whys. Why me? Why this? Why now? Will send you literally mad. So we're excited about the program. It'll be first in, first served. All of the
Mm.
details and each week is themed, and it has obviously a gradient. And it is live coaching, live alchemy, both from myself and Marie.
Mm.
So you got a double whammy coming at you.
Yeah.
And for anybody that is interested in fast tracking their life in the next 90 days, we'd love to invite you to come and join us.
Yeah. That's a very exclusive, very personal invitation here. And I can only highlight what you just said. If it calls you, there's nothing that we want to sell upon anyone and push onto anyone. We just open the doors. And if it calls you, you'll come in. I'm really looking forward to doing this with you. I could be sitting here for at least another half an hour. But before we wrap this up, I just want to say two things. We will be putting the link for the Alchemy of Becoming in the show notes below. So there's a lot of explanation. We give you the ins and outs of what we will be doing in those 12 weeks. We're going to have a bonus session at the very end because we want to reconnect with you and see how you are applying that in your life and how you feel, the before and after, the connection. Like a program like that really it forms such deep connections on such a personal level, and that's why we want to keep it really intimate and small. So maximum of 20 people. If it feels like it calls your heart, then check out the link in the show notes below.
And one thing
And
I'd just
yeah,
like to request is
please, yeah,
this may not resonate for you, but there may be somebody in your life, both personally and or
yeah,
professionally, because we're tackling
yeah.
both, that you know of that is really
Mm,
looking for support with what it
yeah.
is that they're dealing with, would really welcome your support with paying
Yeah.
this forward. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think the best way, if you do want to share it, if you have been listening to 1, 2, or 3 episodes of our conversation here, if you do want to share it, I would recommend sharing this conversation because it will have the links to the first and the second part and the Alchemy of Becoming in the show notes. So I think it would be the best way to start because then people get a feel for who we are and what we're presenting here. So Sally, is there any final words that you would like to say before we see people on the other side, hopefully?
Mm. It's an interesting one to finish on, but
Mm,
as far as traction is concerned, a lot of coaches focus on, what do you want, and bridging the gap between where you are and where you want to be, which
mm,
is all valid. I'd just like to bring awareness to what we tolerate as human beings. The distinction toleration is a persistent complaint.
mm.
We have relationship tolerations, financial tolerations, organizational tolerations, relationship tolerations, friendship tolerations.
Yeah.
It is rife. That's like an undercurrent in the background taking you in the opposite direction. So the power of awareness-based training, which is of what we both do, that um, when you like buy the car, see the make and model everywhere. You didn't see it before, but then you see it everywhere. Which is the beauty of live coaching. When you may not want to be in the hot seat, but witnessing what's occurring in the hot seat by either you or me coaching, you will get your own transformation just through witnessing, let alone, being able to get direct support from either of us. So I'm excited about not only having people bridge the gap, identify what it is that they're wanting to achieve, but I'm also wanting to have them really understand the power of what would your life look like if you didn't tolerate anything that wasn't working. That can be an absolute mindfuck,
Yeah.
But it's possible, I mean, there's a lot of things I'm yet to achieve, don't get me wrong, but I don't sit and complain. Yeah. And a lot of people live in SSD, serious significancy and drama. What would your life look like? So what would your life look like if you didn't tolerate anything that wasn't working? And what would your life look like if you were drama free? Boom, baby, boom.
Yeah. I was like, action, baby, let's do it. Sally, thank you so much for being here. And as always, if you love what you see here, what you experience here, then hit the subscribe button and the notification bell for weekly updates on silence grief. This was a very different experience, having this in 3 parts. I'm so grateful for your presence and so excited about what's to come. So have a beautiful day, everybody.
Likewise.
Feel
Thank you.
free to share. This is Sally. And